Hey guys, the Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more reviews, and welcome to my review on Color Out of Space, starring Nicolas Cage. Now, this is a film that was recommended to me by a couple people. Corey, aka King Need Gore, John Steele recommended this to me, and I had never heard about this movie. This is a movie that came out in 2019, gets a 6.2. Wow, really low on IMDb. That's very low, and is directed by Richard Stanley. And Richard Stanley, I don't think had made a movie since it's talking about on here that he got fired in the middle of making the Island of Dr. Monroe. And apparently there's a big history to that movie and why he got fired, and there's a whole documentary about it. I've never seen the movie before, so I don't really know much about that film, but I know that this is the same director who got fired during that, and he came and made this movie quite a bit of time later. And of course, this stars Nicolas Cage and is based on H.P. Lovecraft. Now, I can sit here and be like, oh yeah, I know so much about H.P. Lovecraft, and oh my god, I love this dude's work. Honestly, I'm not too familiar, and it's not that I don't want to read his stuff, it's just that I've never really had a way to read H.P. Lovecraft. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of ways online to read H.P. Lovecraft. I'm pretty sure, there's a lot of stories out there to read. Just never really did read much of H.P. Lovecraft, but I'm definitely interested in checking out his work because I am a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I am a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I am a really big fan of him. But, yeah, this movie came out in 2019. I really didn't hear much about this film. This was very under the radar. I didn't know about it. I didn't hear anything about it. And it has a pretty good cast to it. I mean, you have Tommy Chong. You have a guest appearance in there by him. The whole family, I thought they all did their jobs really well as far as acting goes. I thought they did a great job. The family, you really bought them as a family. And what I like about this movie is that it didn't make them unlikable. I don't know what this whole trend is nowadays with families and movies, that we got to make them all unlikable, but you actually have a lot of likable characters in this movie, and they have a great cast in this film, and the acting is definitely on point. The guy who comes out and tests the water in the area, which I'll get into more in detail in the story here in a second, he did a pretty good job. I guess you could say this chick right here is sort of like the lead girl of the movie. Nicolas Cage is the father, you have the mother, and the story is that, and by the way, I will be spoiling this movie. The reason why I mentioned spoilers and spoiler alert is I want you guys to go out and watch this movie, especially if you're a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not too familiar with him, but if you're a really big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, I'm pretty sure that you'd love this movie because the filmmakers made it a big goal of theirs to make a very true adaptation to H.P. Lovecraft. So if you are a fan, I really, really recommend this movie. And I've seen quite a few movies that are based off of H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, the one that really sticks out to me is Reanimator. That one's based off of H.P. Lovecraft. But yeah, if you're a fan, I recommend this movie because they put a lot of passion into adapting his story. And I also want to say spoiler alert because if you have not seen this movie, check it out. It's a really awesome, neat flick. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely very creative, very original, very well made. It's a movie that has a slow pace to it, but to me really works. If you have not seen it, definitely check it out. It's a very, very good movie. But I want to say that because if I do get into spoilers, I don't want to spoil it for the people that haven't seen it yet. I really want you guys to go out and check this movie out. But, yeah, to get into the movie a little bit more, you have a family basically out in the middle of nowhere. Nicolas Cage is on, I believe he says, his father's farm. And they're, raising animals. And they're basically living a very quiet life. And one day a meteorite falls from outer space, lands in their front yard, and basically it starts tying in the water that they're drinking and the animals are drinking, and basically everybody around that area is drinking to this meteorite. And there's weird things going on. There's a lot of weird lights, and they got to figure out what's happening to their family and what is in this water. And I think it's a really neat movie. I mean, you also have this guy who's out there, he's from a university, he's testing the water, making sure everything's clear. I guess you could say he's one of the leads. He did a pretty good job. He shows up occasionally and tells them that this water's not very good, but of course, it's already too late. They've drinking the water already. But yeah, again, this movie, the positives, this movie is filmed very, very well. The opening shot of this movie could literally be like a desktop background, or, you know, a background on your phone, or, you know, I don't know, a painting, you know, maybe. But, you know, it's a very beautiful scenery, that opening of the movie, that just very opening shot of just the trees. And I don't know if it was shot, like, during dawn or something, but it looked great. And not just one very basic, simple shot that the movie opens up with. And it really creates this moody atmosphere through the entire movie. And I really love how this movie's filmed. It's filmed with just a great filter to it, with also great usages of lighting and camera angles. Beautiful movie to look at. And this movie was very low budget. I mean, it did not cost that much money to make this. And another positive is the acting. I thought Nicolas Cage did a great job, as well as the rest of the cast. Joely Richardson, Madeline Arthur, Elliot Knight. You know, you had Tommy Chong making a little appearance in there. All did great jobs in this movie. I thought every single person in the cast did a great job. So the acting's on point. The direction, I think, is on point. This movie has a very interesting feel to it, a very interesting vibe to it. Kind of like I don't know why I want to say a fantasy feel to it, but this kind of weird cosmic feel to it. And it has a great tone and energy and vibe, and it also has a great style to it. It's a very well shot movie, it's a very well made movie, and the direction, I think, is on point. And to get into some other positives here in a second, I'm trying to look for the budget here, because it unfortunately didn't make that much money, because it's got a $6 million budget. It says it grossed about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million worldwide, which unfortunately that isn't very good return. $1 million on a $6 million budget. It's kind of crazy. I don't understand if it was just the distribution of the movie. I don't even know if it went to theaters. I can't remember if it was in theaters or not. But it has a $6 million budget. That's very, very low budget compared to what most movies cost today. And to see it, this movie, you know, is working with that kind of a budget, you know, I just think shows that this movie definitely is well made. Because there is a lot of CGI in this movie, and while I will say a couple of the scenes, the CGI does stick out, I think for the most part, the CGI looks great. I think all the effects look good. I think whenever it gets to the light sequences, where they're seeing this beam of light, and the effects towards the end of the movie, where the effects just ramp up. Like that third act, that very ending to the movie, was one of the most intense third acts I've seen. It's just very, very intense, very fast-paced, crazy, and just filmed well. The effects are well done. I guess I could get into that too. Very well done effects, you know. Try to keep it practical in some scenes, mostly having CGI, but with this kind of a movie, it is kind of hard to do this all practically. So I can appreciate the fact that they do have some practical effects in there, but they also do have some great CGI. So see, CGI isn't always bad, you know. CGI can be good. And I think that it's used very well in this movie. As far as any nitpicks or any negatives, I would say the music is definitely not as memorable as it probably could have been. Not a bad score per se, but a score that you're not really going to notice too much. Like, it's kind of in the background, very faint. It adds to certain scenes. It does what it needs to do. It enhances certain scenes. But you really don't have that score or that, you know, really good suit or that really good just, you know, theme song to the movie. You really don't have that in this movie. It's a lot of moody music, low kind of tones, and more about building the atmosphere. So I can say it does that really well, but I would have appreciated if we could have gotten like a really catchy theme song to this movie. As far as any other things, I mean, a positive thing is the pacing. And it's surprising because when I put this movie in and I seen that it was almost 2 hours, I immediately got flashbacks to when I was watching Wrong Turn, the reboot, because that's almost 2 hours. And I was like, oh god, this can either go really bad or really good. And it went really good. The pacing is not a problem. It's the first half is the build up. The second half is when things really start kicking in. And I think that it does that, you know, phenomenally. I think it does a great job at that, at handling the pacing of the movie. I can't remember any other problems I had. You know, I think it has a pretty cool ending. It leads to, if they wanted to do a sequel, they could. But I will say this, I am curious if they could make a TV show off of this movie. Because even though it didn't do great as far as box office goes, I'm pretty sure they could get a TV show off of this. I don't know about a sequel, but, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing a TV show take place after this movie and have the water inspector guy kind of be the lead of that show. Because obviously the critics loved that. I mean, it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And I don't really base movies off of Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I'm glad it got that rating because it deserves it. Which is why I don't understand why it has a 6.2 on here. It's very low. You know, I think it deserves certified fresh, but I don't really base movies off of that. Because there are some movies that get certified fresh that I'm like, what? You know? But yeah, I appreciate the fact that it does have a lot of critical praise. Can't go one video without having a trip up and having a tongue twister. But gets a lot of critical praise, and I definitely appreciate that. I'm glad it does have a lot of praise from the critics. Overall, I will give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a very, very interesting movie. The backstory, the behind the scenes, if you get this Blu-ray, very, very cheap Blu-ray. It was in the bargain bin at Walmart. I think I maybe paid $7 at most for this Blu-ray, which is very, very shocking because, you know, it's a good movie. And, you know, I'm glad I got it for a bargain, obviously, but it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it. It's quite a creative flick, and it has a good energy, a good mood. It has some really freaky scenes, some really haunting scenes. And it has some good direction, good acting, has a great cast. Overall, a very, very solid movie, Color Out of Space. I would have done this review a lot earlier in the week, but I did the review, and I was going to post it. But in that review, I was so tired, and I was exhausted, and I was barely awake in that review, so I was over here rewatching it back, and I'm like, I'm not really pleased with how that review turned out. So I was going to post that a lot earlier, as well as an earlier review for this movie, but yeah, now that I have time to, I figured I'd talk about them with you guys. But yet again, like I said, gets a solid 8 out of 10 for me. I recommend it a lot. If you have seen it, definitely let me know your guys' thoughts on this film in the comments below. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the review. Hope you guys enjoyed. The Explorer 4 is out of here, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Peace.